The rise and fall of Kodak. This is what happens when you forget about your customer's experience. Today we're going to talk about one of the most iconic companies in history. That's Kodak. Now, if you're anything younger than a millennial, then you haven't heard of it. If you have, good for you. If not, you're going to find out today. This is something that I, as a millennial, know. Gen X knows this. Boomers, even greatest generation, and then the silent generation. Even these guys know it. And even before that, about 2 more generations know about it. Now, this used to be one of the biggest companies in the world because it had a global reach, because it was kind of the only thing in its class doing a thing. It didn't just take pictures, they define how the world captures memories, if you want to be poetic about it. If you thought photography, you thought Kodak. It's simple. It's not like AIs, ChatGPT holds like the collective mindset of what an AI should be. You always think about ChatGPT. Most people do anyway. That's how Kodak used to be. So how did it go from dominating photography on a global scale to filing for bankruptcy? In this video, we're going to find out how that happened. We're also going to look into why customers shouldn't be ignored. Early beginnings. So Kodak started in 1888 when George Eastman, this was the founder, he revolutionized photography. Before Kodak, taking a photo was a chemistry class. Glass plates, chemicals, explosions. Okay, maybe not explosions in the sense that you might think of. So Eastman introduced a simple camera that came together with a film. And it had the slogan, "You press the button and we do the rest." Sounds simple, right? That was customer experience genius. This was ahead of its time. You could just make something practical and easy to use and everybody can get behind it. He removed all this friction from getting a camera, studying for how to get a photograph, and all the material that you had to pay for in order to get the photo, and the chemistry class and all that stuff. So he democratized photography and he turned something super technical into something really easy to use. So far, so good. Very innovative, very good, very nice. So Kodak was so successful that they were one of the first brands that initiated the idea of a subscription-like model. So not only pioneering photography, but also business. So what you do is, after you've taken your pictures, you send the camera back to Kodak. They develop your photos, and then they ship them to you and make it ready so you can shoot again. And this is the 19th century version of auto-renewing your contract. So Eastman didn't just revolutionize the photography business, he also created the concept of a user journey. Now, all this added to the rise to world fame. This is what actually inspired the idea of a Kodak moment. By the mid-1900s, Kodak wasn't just a company, it was an emotion. They owned over 90% of film sales and 85% of camera sales worldwide. They created the famous slogan, "A Kodak Moment," and this became a synonym with joy, nostalgia, family, good times, yay! If you've ever seen any footage of the moon landing, it was shot on Kodak film, which solidified Kodak as the #1 thing in the world right then. By the way, my name is Dominic. I'm a customer experience enthusiast. I've been one for the past 15 plus years, 12 years as a Zendesk consultant with Zendesk partners and resellers, and I love this stuff. I love customer experience. And the next chapter is super interesting. It's the climax of Kodak. It's the giant with the digital camera. Here's when the story starts to get wild. In 1975, an engineer called Steven Sasson, so he invented the first digital camera. And what he did is he went to his supervisors at Kodak and say, "Hey guys, I made this new thing. I think it's great. Look, it's digital. You don't have to have that film thing. And, you just get rid of this messy parts of developing the film. And this is really exciting." And the board of directors of Kodak said, "What? You're asking us to disrupt our own industry? Get the fuck out. Just get out." They just sat on it and they buried it. So why did they do that? Well, they thought that going to digital will cause, a decrease in sales, because a part of their business was to also develop the film and make some money off of that too. Digital part would just kind of cut that off and just have the camera taking the photos, and everything else would be just not there anymore. So they said, "This is a very cute idea. Don't tell anyone about it, because we don't want to, things are fine just the way they are. Money's pouring in, so let's just forget it. Oh shoot, I forgot this thing on my head. It's the new headphone I'm trying out, and I'll make a video about it. It's actually fucking cool. So Sason's invention, so this digital camera, it took 23 seconds to record a photo. So they didn't like that either because it took long. But nevertheless, Kodak had the brand, they had the technology, and they also had the market. Over 90%. You can't just fathom this. But they didn't have enough courage to disrupt themselves. And then other camera producers enter the chat. And then they invent the digital camera, and they slowly start chipping away at Kodak, which you'll find out in the next chapter of their demise. So when you focus too much on existing customers, you ignore potential new avenues and you lose sight of your journey. So Kodak never asked the question like, what comes next? Everything was going so well for them, so they just got comfortable. Well, big mistake. They just kept asking like, how can we sell the same thing even more? Which is not disrupting anything, and it gets boring after a while. I mean, let's be real. It was almost like 100 years since the initial invention. So how much can you ride the same kind of stuff, bro? So the beginning of the end for Kodak. So by the 1990s, digital cameras exploded because, well, why wouldn't they? And Kodak was caught off guard. Sony, Canon, Nikon, they all jumped on this opportunity. And Kodak fumbled and they tried to join, but super late. It was already too late. These other companies were gaining grounds fast as they were still struggling and still trying to sell film cameras and also printers. And in 2012, Kodak finally filed for bankruptcy. So, as a fun fact, even during its downfall, Kodak invented a technology that is still being used in the current iPhone models. But they sold the patent to this technology for a fraction of the price it was actually worth because they didn't believe it would amount to anything. Oh my god. What happened to Kodak's customers? The customer experience just broke. I mean, how much can you just do the same film? And you can only have like, I think there was like the 24 position films, and then there was the 36, so you can only have either 24 photos or 36, and that was it. And that was terrible. Like with the digital camera, you can just have hundreds, and then the technology for storage evolved, and then you can have thousands and then tens of thousands of photos. So the CX lesson, like great experiences aren't just built once. I mean, you do build it once and you do ride it out for as long as possible, but then you stop and think, what's the next thing? What can we do? Even if it means disrupting your own industry. Famously, Apple did this. So they had the iPod, and then they have the iPhone, and then they invented the iPad, which was cannibalizing these first two, the iPod and the iPhone. But the iPad, however, started to have its own traction because it was used for different purposes than these other two. It did steal the market, but it then created a whole new segment for itself. So what can we learn about this fuck up from Kodak? So the photo industry and its disruption in the beginning of Kodak, that's not the point. It's sort of an experience myopia. Like, you don't see very well where things are going, and nor should you. But if you get comfortable, that's the sure way to be taken out into irrelevance. So it went from one of the most beloved brands in history to one that nobody even knows now. So I thought this story was interesting, and I thought I'd share it with you. And if you enjoy this content, please maybe share it with somebody if you want to talk about Kodak Moment and a fun fact about a famous brand. If you want to do another review about another product that went from this kind of, ascension to something most loved then most forgotten, let me know in the comments. I'd really be interested in hearing and maybe make a video about it. I am very grateful for you watching this video. You're a legend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.